Okay, so today we're going to talk about the paradox of mastery. I think I was reading the Tao Te Ching and a couple of other things, and the topic kind of covered mastery. And here's just kind of a breakdown on the thoughts on what I got out of the paradox of mastery, which I think more or less boils down to, mastery as a skill, accumulation, and perfection. And so when you think of mastery, you think, I'm going to do something a whole bunch. I'm going to keep working at it. I'm going to learn more things. I'm going to do more things in the area. So if it were anything, if I wanted to become an architect or builder, I would have to learn all of the programs and all of the things on all the design things on how to learn it. And that's really how we all do everything, essentially, right? So if I'm trying to learn anything, I'm just going to accumulate as many things as I possibly can in that area to then understand as much as I can about that thing. But the really funny thing about the Taoist insight, which is always fucking opposite, which is funny, which is mastery requires unlearning and simplicity. And so I think how all this ties together, because it's like you have to learn things. You have to learn how to live life, how to do things, how to acquire skills to move forward in life. But then you get to a point when you go so far down that route where you have to start unlearning and moving toward a more simple, almost like innocent mindset, as if you're a child or you're focusing on play, or you're simple minded, in that regard. And that's some of the most profound, whether it be pieces of music or buildings or insights, come from very simple unlearning type of thought process. So I always try to think, how can I unlearn something? How can I think about this in a different way? Because if I constantly think, if I've been programmed to think about this one thing, and everybody tells me this one thing is whatever it is, I can't look at it a different way. And I think it really cuts off a lot of creativity and a new way and a new insight on how to look at something. And not to say that there's a big role of knowledge, right? So knowledge is definitely a starting point for growth. Like, you have to have knowledge to even build toward wisdom and awareness and all those fun things. But knowledge is just that. It's a starting point. It's a movement of growth and understanding and curiosity towards something. But we have to understand knowledge does become a hindrance at some point instead of a tool. And it's very, very hard. Those lines get blurred a lot of the times when you go farther down a profession or a vocation and you start to only see something in a certain way and only want to seek this knowledge that only propels that viewpoint that you have forward. And it does become a hindrance, right? The same thing that got you there won't be the same thing that gets you to the next step, right? The people that get you from point A to point B are often not always the ones that get you from B to C. And so the next point is really unlearning for simplicity and the process of letting go of unnecessary complexities, right? So the farther we go, the things often get more complex, but really at that point, we have to embrace a beginner's mindset and look at things in a new perspective. And it is really hard to continuously look at something from a beginner's mindset because we're only growing in knowledge of that thing. So we're only maybe getting quote unquote more expertise or awareness around it, but we really move toward, oh, I know this and that. And then you start judging, and then you become this hard, rigid structure that doesn't necessarily see, the wonder in that same field, right? It could be fitness or music or architecture or anything, gardening, whatever it may be. The farther you go down, oftentimes, the farther you do that human thing of just, making it more complex and not seeing it the way you did at the very beginning. And so I believe it seems that the natural way is the way of the Tao, right? And so it's living in harmony with life's flow, right? So wherever you're at, that's where you should be. That's where you're supposed to be, and use that resource material to get you to the next place. We often push and use this mechanistic approach to, I see this thing in front of me, I'm going to push forward, or I'm going to build a thing to push it out of the way, as opposed to letting it maybe be in the way, letting it sit for a second and then moving toward, and then allowing it to move on its own, right? So we often put a lot of energy and effort into moving things or getting out of the way or moving forward, really just movement, honestly. And that is oftentimes not life's natural flow. And I think that's the natural way that the Tao does speak of. And it is almost even futile to force things that should be natural, right? The more you force it, the more effort you're putting in, the harder you're working, and that's not flow. That's just effort and energy, and it's good at times, but often we I know I do, we overdo it at times and make it not a natural thing. And this moves really to the effortless action, which is Wu Wei, which is, it's crazy to think that like you could take action and it be effortless, or it's almost like I'm doing nothing. But the idea of acting without struggle, yeah, there's always going to be resistance in life in some regard, but you want to move in a way that's fluid. And I think that is as soon as you see some turbulence, you find another way around it, right? You don't just keep pushing on that immovable object because you kept on this route and kept on this road, so I have to stay on this road. It's like, no, you could go around and then continue on another path, but it's often that redirection that gets us confused. We want to just keep going and doing the same things because that just is what we've been doing in the past. And so, yeah, I think the next point is really the power of practice and consistency over perfection and skill building. And I think the thing I got from this was it was a quote about like pretty much, the left hand is useless without practice, right? So maybe you're right-handed and you never practice writing or doing anything with your left hand. And the left hand is so bad when you try to do stuff with it. But the same way your right hand got good at writing or doing whatever, the left hand has the ability to do that as well. And I think practice and really honing in on that. I might be bad at this, but I can get better at it by practice. And practice is the only way to make something more useful, right? We often think, oh, I'm bad at this, or oh, I can't do this, or oh, this is this way. But it's because it's not the same as something else in my life, right? Where it could be finances or relationship or your job or your health. Like everything that you're good at, you probably had to practice to get at. So moving and moving toward that from a power of practice and effortless movement and play, honestly, and being really intrigued and being really curious. I think that all ties in with quote unquote mastery in a more natural sense. And so letting go of force is kind of my next point. And so how control creates resistance. So I feel like as soon as you try and control and coerce and compete, you lose this sense of like love and freedom that is inherent in things that are natural, right? And trusting in the process of growth as it goes, right? I feel like I don't see, and I can't perceive this, but I can't see a small plant just being there small and growing and being like, God damn it, I really want to be a fucking tree and I'm not a fucking tree. But I feel like that's exactly what we do. We're like, fuck, I'm right here and I don't want to be I want to be somewhere else. And you're like, there's all this anxiousness and growing. And it's like, just fucking let go and allow that force of nature, allow like the natural growth process to occur. Like shit gets bad sometimes, like shit rains sometimes, it's sunny some days, it's fucking cold other days. That's cool. You and we often want the same consistent, we want all these wonderful things all at once. And like nothing really works that way. It just is, growth is growth, and it feels like a million fucking things because you're a human being. It's not just one thing. And this leads me to getting toward the end of mastery as a state of being. And so moving beyond mastery as a destination. So really thinking that I'm just in a perpetual state of understanding what I'm doing and who I am and my mastery of self. And that really should align with how simple it really is to be present and in your own body. And that's it. And that's all it is. Just, it's as simple as always. Life is as simple as one step at a time. Yet we live in a world of, you see people 1,000 steps ahead of you or 100 steps behind you or 50 steps to the left of you. And realistically, it's just you. It's just your feet. You're walking, you're moving, and it's just a state of being. It's really honing in on that's who I am. I am in a state of curiosity. I'm in a state of learning and growth, and that's fucking cool. And it's gonna suck some days. It's gonna be really fun some days. But realistically, what do you have to compare it to? You're a human. You're alive. You're here. Fucking let's ride this out. And so practical applications for kind of me is really identifying areas in life where you're forcing change as opposed to letting it occur naturally, and applying the principles of like effortless action to move you in a place where you're growing, you're getting better, you're moving in that place that feels good. It feels like this is when I was here for the first time, how excited I was and how much joy that natural route brought to me. And so, yeah, that effortless action. What do you love to do? How can you effortlessly do it? How not make it a grind? How not to think of it as a chore? And even if it is a chore, how to make it seem like it's effortless? Because that's where you're going to find a lot of light, easy energy to be able to make you feel so not heavy and stiff and rigid. And really, closing reflection is mastery is really about releasing and not holding on. So just fucking letting it go, going and doing what you want to do, going exploring what you want to explore, not having a million different thoughts in your mind telling you shouldn't do this or look at this person or I'm comparing. It's just going and learning how to do something and growing and in a really fun, natural way. The same way that things were natural. I feel like early on in life as you were first learning them or I just think about a time when I always think of that little tree, like that little sprout, just like fucking, it's going on its own pace and it doesn't really worry about anything else. Some days it grows more than others, but you're always on that course of growth and mastery. And really last point is to trust the flow of life. Practice is what matters and let mastery emerge after. So really get lost in that practice, get lost in that, how does this work? How do I figure this out? What is this? And not get so caught up on outcomes or where you started or all these other things. Just focus on the practice. The left hand only got good. The right hand only got good because you practiced on the right hand. And if you practice on the left hand's going to get good too. And I think that's my last point. And so I hope that those thoughts helped anybody, maybe mainly me, honestly. But that was just really covering the paradox of mastery, more so focused on the Tao today. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.